Let's get ready to rumble!
Alright, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
What happens next is often tough after a loss, but fighters lose, and good fighters lose.
Fighters lose and come back. We've seen it. I've seen that on many occasions. He's 38. He's not a youngster, but he's not got a lot of miles on the clock as far as being a pro boxer is concerned. He's what's it, on his 16th fight, I think, or 17th fight, and we'll see. It's up to him. But he seriously needs to consider it, because it's not going to be an easy journey back. There are some good fights out there.
So I was accused of lying and twisting Frank Warren's words. So that was on Fight Hub. He said he seriously might want to consider it. Consider what? He seriously might want to consider boxing again, is what he meant. Now what, are you going to try and twist that and say, no, he didn't mean that? No, that's what he meant. Now he didn't say he's got to retire, because he's not that stupid. He's going to come out and say that. Joe still has fights left on his contract. And then on Boxing News, here's what he said.
Hurt and knocked out badly tonight. At his age, do you think there's a road back for him?
There's a couple of domestic fights. If he chooses to fight, he might want to retire. I don't know.
2 separate interviews, he hints that Joe might want to retire. Leave it out, man. Leave it out. You know, and I wasn't even suggesting that Frank was doing anything abnormally bad. I even pointed out the fighters that Eddie discarded when he considered them expendable.
The problem for Frank Warren is Joe Joyce has probably got fights left on his contract for a load of money that Frank Warren don't want to give him, because now he doesn't have the value.
For Joe to come back, he's going to at least need 2 or 3 fights, right? He's lost his last 2, so they're going to be looking at journeyman. Joe signed an extension on his contract, and I'm going to assume that there's a cap on how little Frank can pay him per a fight, regardless of how limited the opposition is. So if he's fighting a journeyman in his first fight back with 50 losses and 2 wins, he can't pay him $2,000 because you're already fighting a journeyman, Joe. He can't do that. He has to pay him what the baseline is on the contract, and they don't want to do that. And if I was Frank, neither would I.
I think it's going to be difficult for whoever's behind Joe, Frank Warren and his management team, to lure opponents into fighting him now. He's not bringing anything to the table now.
So Joe comes back and fights this journeyman, and they've got to pay him, I don't know what the baseline is, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 baseline to fight a journeyman. Well, is this a headlining fight? We have to pay you that much for a fight that will more than likely have to be on someone's undercard. Or if Joe's going to headline with a fight like that, it would have to be at a small venue like the York Hall. How are they going to recoup the money back? Joe is an expensive problem. He's a 38-year-old coming off 2 stoppage losses, who's never been a draw. It's not like people are queuing up to fight Joe and use him as a stepping stone. And that might be the only way back for Joe. If Frank can find someone who is building up to use Joe as a stepping stone, that might be a route back. Or let's say Eddie Hearn, Ben Shalom, or the Sauerlands have got a prospect or a contender they're trying to build up. They can send Joe over across the street, because at least they don't have to pay his purse. And if Joe wins, he'll come back to Frank with a little more value. That's the game. 2 separate interviews he hinted at Joe retiring, because he meant that. Because that would be an easy way out for Frank. Joe's got a nice contract there. They have to pay Joe Premiership boxing purses for York Hall copper box level fights. He's not going to walk away from that easy. So the proposed December date for the Crawford-Spence rematch, tell us something we didn't know, Stephen Espinoza, is more than likely going to be in 2024. Errol did exercise the rematch clause, but Stephen said it's not just saying, hey, I don't want to fight at this weight class, I want to fight at this weight class. He said, look, it's a discussion. There are no sort of immediate deadlines on it. But look, we have a busy schedule for the rest of the year. We've got a couple more events coming. I don't think we're going to end up squeezing Crawford and Spence in for this year. Won't waste too long on this, because you saw the first fight. This will be no surprise to you at all. This will be no surprise. There's no commercial value in this rematch after the first fight, none at all. I'm on Boxing News 24, and they said pushing it back into 2024 will give the fans some time to erase the memory of the first fight. Well, let me tell you this, you're going to need more than a year to put the memory of that out of people's consciousness. You need more than that. Errol Spence needs a fight or 2. prove to people that he's worth a second fight. That's how bad the first fight was. Whether you're Steven Espinoza, Derek James, or anyone connected to Errol Spence, let's not bullshit talking about we're running out of time. No, Spence is running out of time. The truth is we need to see Crawford in another challenge, whether that's Boots Ennis, the winner out of CHARLO and CANELO. We need to see a new challenge. And Spence has to re-establish his credentials. In an immediate rematch with Crawford, even a year's time, it's going to flop badly on any commercial level you want to talk about. You know, it must have been nice for the pro-Spence media and the fans pretending that Spence was going to get back in the ring with Crawford in December. It must have been nice playing pretend. But what's the point? You come in at 154 and by December you'll be ready to whoop Crawford's ass. This is dumb shit at this point. So apparently, Alexander Usyk versus Tyson Fury is signed for a potential date in Saudi Arabia, 23rd of December. It will be announced after Fury takes on Ngannou, provided Ngannou don't spill Tyson all over the floor. I've noticed that it hasn't got a very enthusiastic reception online, like saying, oh man, we've got the fight, we finally got the fight. Because nobody trusts Tyson Fury like that no more. They don't trust Frank Warren. But according to Mike Coppinger, multiple sources in ESPN are saying Saudi Arabia, 23rd of December. I doubt that it's a ploy to sell more tickets or pay-per-view for the Ngannou versus Fury event. I wouldn't put it past the likes of Aaron and Frank Warren to be doing that, and Tyson Fury. But I can't be that cynical. But apparently Frank Warren was on TalkSport saying they have up until the end of Riyadh season, March, to make the undisputed fight, and that there are no dates, months fixed in. What Frank is saying conflicts with the information coming out from ESPN. And just like 505 is saying here, I defo don't believe that's happening in December, probably January, February. Tyson is still in training for Ngannou. Now if he's going all out in training camp like he has done for a Wilder fight for instance, yes, I'd have my doubts if he'd go straight into a next camp through November and then fight Usyk in December. I'd have my doubts. If I don't sound as enthusiastic as you would like, that's because I need more confirmation of what's going on. I was going to wait for the weigh-in, but you know, got a lot of other stuff to do apart from making vids. Saw a picture of Canelo. He looked in great shape, looked in very good shape. He's been saying that CHARLO is phony, trying to be all nice to him, trying to butter him up when he's been talking shit about Canelo before. CHARLO said he's not here to be nice to Canelo, he's here to win. Well, I hope so. I hope he isn't there to be nice to Canelo. Sure don't want to see that. Somehow DAZN have obtained the UK broadcasting rights. Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3. I am a little intrigued by the match, but it's difficult to look past the Canelo win. On points is the likely outcome, but he'll be looking for a stoppage. He'll be looking for a stoppage to prove that he's still got it. And I'm wondering if CHARLO is bluffing Canelo for real, being nice to him, saying that he's struggling to make 168, and then try surprise Canelo. We shall see. Caroline Dubois headlines at the York Hall against Magila Rodriguez for the IBO lightweight title. And she reveals that she turned pro 2022, a year and some change back, and she's only been tested once for PEDs. And she's shocked by the lack of drug testing in her tenure as a professional boxer. And this revelation is on the back of Eddie Hearn asking Ben Shalom to provide VADA testing for Caroline Dubois' next fight. And it looks like Caroline Dubois, signed to Boxer and Sky, Joe McNally, trainer of Liam Smith, signed to Boxer and Sky, are not impressed by boxers' lack of PED testing on their cards. Dave Allen, who fought Fraser Clark, heavyweight prospect for Boxer and Sky, said he wasn't tested for their fight just a few weeks back. He wasn't tested once. And there will be no VADA testing on this card, which is headlined by a world title fight. According to Ben Shalom, the IBO lightweight title that Caroline is challenging for is a legit world title. There should be VADA testing. So then we travel a couple of miles up the road from the York Hall to Wembley Arena. One train ride away, let's say. Jai OPETAIA defends his IBF World Cruiserweight title against Jordan Thompson. And the whole card will be VADA tested as well as UCAD. Look at the title of the video. Caroline is complaining about not being tested, urging a promoter and authorities to do more. And there's Simon Jordan and Jim White with Ben Shalom, Caroline's promoter, right in front of them, and they're just letting him skate.
But she's also, if you like, opened up a bit of a can of worms as well, because she says she's been left shocked by a lack of drugs testing. She's been tested once since she turned pro last year. This comes at a time that in the men's fight game, Dillian White, Hellenius, and then in the women's fight game, Baumgartner, but back with the men's, Conor BENN, all returned tests with adverse analytical findings. Why has she only been tested once?
Look, clearly there is a drug problem.
But listen to what Simon Jordan says.
Not condoning that there shouldn't be VADA testing, but suggesting that the reasons why I wouldn't be that bothered about VADA testing is because Conor BENN's legal team have just overturned the jurisdiction of VADA.
Bullshit. Conor BENN's suspension wasn't lifted because of jurisdiction, and he keeps saying that same thing time and time again. And what it is, I don't think Matchroom are even following what TalkSport are saying anymore, because they've told so much lies, and they've been so biased against Ben and Matchroom, it's hard to keep up with it all. But they're just going to keep saying what they're saying. Conor BENN's suspension was not lifted because of jurisdiction. That's a lie. So you've got Simon Jordan, Thomas Hauser, and the Boxing News, who had to apologise to Eddie for letting Thomas Hauser say that Ben wasn't being tested for his last fight, that UKAD dismissed all the scientific evidence provided. They had to apologise. You go on that VADA website and look at all the fighters who've passed VADA testing this year and last year. All you're going to see is Matchroom fighters, PBC, some Queensbury fighters, some Golden Boy, some top rank fighters, and no fighters signed to Boxer. None. And BUATSI, AZEEZ, no VADA testing. I'll be watching the DAZN card, but I will be keeping an eye out for Viddal Riley's fight against Nathan Corliss for the English title. Viddal is actually signed to 258 Management, which is Anthony Joshua's imprint. He called the move leveling up. Wants to brand himself better. Well, no better way to brand yourself than winning your next fight. And Nathan Corliss, son of former British heavyweight contender Noel Corliss, is a real test. But I will be looking forward to Jai OPETAIA's first defense of his IBF title against Jordan Thompson. That is a monster clash that's gone under the radar. Challenger Jordan Thompson, 15-0, 12 inside the distance. Jai OPETAIA, the champion, 22-0, 17 inside the distance. Jordan Thompson, trained by Tony Sims, has the size and the power, and his body punching has improved. 6'7", cruiserweight. How does he make the weight? Jai, 6'2". The outlook from most is that he's the better boxer, but he has power also. I think Jai is the better coordinated fighter. He's coming off that badly broken jaw. I know a lot of people are picking Jai OPETAIA, but Jordan has enough tools and size to win this fight. And Tony Sims trained fighters are not easy to beat. I'm not calling this one. I'm just going to watch it and enjoy it. I don't know who's going to win. I'm also looking forward to watching Ellie Scotney. She's a very good boxer. Very good to watch. Chevon Clark, he takes on Vasyl Dubois, who gave Jordan Thompson a bit of a scare in the 12th round in 2022. That should be a very good fight. I have to figure that there's certain things that the likes of Dana would do in America that wouldn't perhaps register the same way depending on who he did it with in the UK. And sometimes it's just the way dudes dialogue across there. Because I don't know if they've had previous beef, Stephen Espinoza and Dana White. So Eddie Hearn said he heard from a good source that after 2024, Showtime Boxing will be shutting down the doors. That fraud on Twitter who claims he's got sources, he said it as well. And Dana White has heard the same rumours as well from credible sources, according to Dana. So Dana didn't just say that Showtime are going out of business. He started mocking the product and appeared happy about the news. Stephen Espinoza replied,
"But this will be the third time in the last 6 months that we've done a gate of $20 million. UFC has never done a gate of $20 million in its entire history."
Dana came back and said, "Boxing's success has nothing to do with Espinoza." That's the type of response I would expect from the weasel Espinoza. The scumbag has absolutely nothing to do with the success of Canelo, Ryan Garcia and Terence Crawford. Those guys are megastars, and they are the ones responsible for driving the gates in their fights. For him to try and even take credit at all shows you exactly what an arrogant, delusional piece of shit the guy is. I mean, this is some diatribe. Where did it come from? Do they have previous? For this clown to talk about levels is hilarious. The production of the fights on Showtime is an embarrassment, and Dana says he's been saying that forever. He's a little guy with a big yap and a complete phony. He's not surprised this is the end for them. It should have came way sooner. Sorry to see you go, Weasel. Enjoy your retirement. Like, the Hearns and the Warrens have been going back and forth from the 90s, not really the 80s, the 90s. And every week they're going back and forth. Every week. But he's a little guy with a big yap and is a complete phony. I'm not surprised this is the end for them. I've never heard Frank say that about Eddie, or Eddie have that venom for Frank. Eddie called Frank a small hall promoter, and Frank said his fair share of ad hominems. But it doesn't appear to be as vicious as that. What it's saying here is still not official that Showtime is leaving the boxing business. The talk is that in 2024, Showtime will only be doing pay-per-view events and will no longer have regular boxing on their network. Some people believe that the lack of interest fans have had in Showtime's non-pay-per-view cards is the reason that they could potentially discontinue their regular broadcasts of boxing. There's been criticism from fans about the obscure fighters that are shown on Showtime's regular broadcasts. The pay-per-view events on Showtime have been outstanding, especially recently, but the non-pay-per-view seems to be much less so. When you say outstanding, is that true though? Crawford and Spence didn't do $1 million, did it? I wouldn't say outstanding. 600,000? It's good. It says here that Ryan Garcia versus Tank generated 1.2, which is a huge number. Hearn says he expects Al Heyman to look for another broadcast outlet, possibly DAZN. If that happens, it's unclear if Showtime would be putting on boxing at all, even pay-per-view. Without PBC, Showtime would be without the big-name boxers for pay-per-view events. Could PBC replace Matchroom with DAZN, is what they're asking. Hearn said he knows Al Heyman is talking to other outlets as well. This site here, which is a poisonous site, they're claiming that Hearn shouldn't gloat. If PBC goes to DAZN, it would essentially make Matchroom boxing extendable. I think the word is expendable, not extendable, as they show a lot of British fighters that the US has never heard of and has little interest in watching. What you mean, like Prograis versus Haney? PBC arguably gives more bang for the buck in terms of their deep stable of fighters. Canelo is the biggest draw in American boxing, and DAZN in the last 3 years or so broadcast most of his fights. PBC have had him for a couple of fights. This site here is poisonous. They're saying the PBC will be far better than Matchroom. Well, DAZN is not an American app. It's a global app. And it's very arrogant of Boxing News 24 to say what they're saying. It's not an American app. At the same time, I do believe there are a lot of Americans who don't want to see the majority of British boxers. I do believe that. But how much Brits would hold on to their subscriptions if they're left with Frank Sanchez or Keith Thurman versus Barrios? How much people are going to pay for your pay-per-view at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning to sustain it? You can't be looking at it from that insulated view. Boxing is a global sport, and if you're not playing the global game, you're just going to fail at your objectives. That's what you're going to do. You know, the success of Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis wasn't based on the money coming from an American audience. It was a dual promotion, Mexican and American, PBC and DAZN. So basically, get rid of Matchroom, get rid of Golden Boy as well. You watch how fast the subscriptions drop from Great Britain and Europe. You could also lose the Latin American audience. Just a stupid comment. Instead of saying, yeah, maybe they can contribute to what DAZN has and extend the brand. No, we've got to get rid of Matchroom.
Show some love, kid. Ain't no selfie. Yeah.
There's boxing fans all over the globe tuning into DAZN just to watch Anthony Joshua. I think Boxing 24 are casuals, because what Americans tell me is boxing is very much a fringe sport in the United States. Hence why HBO got out the game. Because boxing has become a fringe sport over the last, let's say, 10 years over there. If an American is going to take over Eddie, he can't just cater to an American audience. He has to be a global promoter. Them days are over. Before social media and internet, all you had to do is cater to the American audience, and you could license your fights or your broadcasts to all the other countries, the UK, Canada, Germany, Africa, Asia, wherever it needs be. That's not how it works right now. Probably the most stupidest article that I've ever read about boxing, ever. And it's not because Eddie has to stay there. It's just the limited business idea that, yeah, American market. What about all the other markets? There's 200 countries that watch DAZN. 200. And not all of them want to see Keith Thurman or Danny Garcia fighting at middleweight, and Stephen Fulton. Good fighter, but nobody knows him outside the PBC fan club. You do understand that DAZN is a British company. You think they're just going to give up the British market like that? So we all have to watch boxing at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning? You know, because Al Heyman and Steve Espinoza fucked up whatever they had over there. Now you got to throw the fucking Matchroom out. Well, these guys, seriously, fucking annoying.